Hello, it's Ali.
Ali embarks on a communications course costing £50, designed to remedy her supposed lack of communication and relationship skills. These are a series of bizarre exercises. Her partner recites a series of numbers. When he moves on to letters, she must persuade him to go back to numbers.
Oh, can you go back to the numbers again? I was just getting interested in those. And then the numbers were really interesting. Thanks, yeah.
In another corner of the room, a man is learning how to control an ashtray by telling it to stand up and sit down. Now Ali's partner pretends to be a child who has wet his pants. Ali must respond appropriately.
You don't have to be ashamed about that. Lots of kids do that when they first come to school. Yeah. Cool. What do I say? Just say the number.
There are also several kids doing communication courses, presumably the children of staff and other members.
7... Actually, 7 should be...
We've reconstructed another training routine from the notes Ali made immediately afterwards. She had to stare fixedly into someone's eyes for over an hour. She even found herself hallucinating.
The staring routines were supposed to make you feel comfortable being with other people, just looking at them. The more you looked at someone, sometimes they changed shape, they grew scales, became like a lizard, or changed from negatives to positives. It was a really strange experience.
Fencing contractor Gary Fry gave the Scientologists £21,000 under the influence of these staring routines.
I actually stared into somebody's eyes for an hour and a half, just continually, and straight afterwards I was taken upstairs to buy more courses, and I can remember just handing over, actually signed a piece of blank paper with my initials, and then gave them, they typed a letter of authority in around it, and I gave them my building society book, and they just went and drew out what they wanted.
When I count from 1 to 7, your eyes will close. You'll remain aware of everything which goes on. You will be able to remember everything that happens here. You can pull yourself out of anything which you get into if you don't like it. Do you understand?
Yes.
Good. 1, 2,
Another technique
3,
is what the Scientologists call auditing.
6, 7. Locate an incident that you feel you can comfortably face. Go to the beginning of that incident.
I'm in my boyfriend's flat, and we're having a huge argument. I've seen him on the street with another girl, and I've asked him about it, and he hasn't denied it. And I've threatened to leave, and he just says, "Okay, go." So I grab my things and walk out the door.
Good. Go back to the beginning.
Ali is required to go over and over a traumatic event in her past.
To a feeling at the time.
I threatened to leave. I just said, I'm going to go then. And he said, "Fine, go. I don't really care if I never see you again." So I just walked out.
Good. Go back to the beginning and go over it again. Pay close attention.
At the end of the session, Ali felt euphoric.
I got quite upset at points, that quite emotional, and I even cried during it. And so after the session I felt on a real high. I felt like I'd been released from something.
In Scientology, as in many of the cults, when they are shutting down the mind systematically, when they're shutting down emotions systematically, people will experience a kind of ecstasy by default, as we call it. There'll be a release of some kind of a pressure, and they'll feel this as a psychological high.
Yes.
Frequently, whilst on a high, Ali is taken to see the director of the pool mission, Roger Kay. He's always keen to sell her more courses. She's already spent £250 and claims to have little money left.
Right.
Kay's recommending Ali should be audited for another 20 hours and do more courses, costing another £2,000. These sessions are often late at night.
You feel more confident about the future and what you want to do and that kind of thing.
So, and that improves your memory?
Yes, that's one of the things it does. There's other things too with that.
And even after the centre closes, the hard sell continues. At the end of this lengthy session, so long that the batteries in her camera had run out, Ali makes a revelation.
I threw in a line that I had a disinheritance in Australia, and he became very interested in that. He didn't push me, but he slowly tried to find out ways how I could get that money, how I could fax the bank, how I could get it quickly. Even though I assured him I could get it in a couple of weeks, that wasn't soon enough for him.
Another day, another registrar, another form, and another tactic. Ali needs to move her car as her 2-hour parking ticket is about to expire.
I've got to get a new ticket for my car in the car park. Where is it?
The Scientologist insists on accompanying her. Ali's rarely left alone, even to go to the toilet, and she's escorted from office to office. It's a deliberate ploy, according to former staff member Stuart Boot.
The idea was that you weren't going to let them leave, because often you found if people had a moment or two to think, the chances are they'd leave or want to change their mind about the money they'd paid in for a course, which was often quite high.
Stuart Boot was 5th in command at Pool Mission until November last year. He attended many late-night meetings to decide which clients to hit financially.
It would become a money-orientated thing that you were looked at as to how many services that we could get out of you and how much money we could milk you for.
Nuclear physicist Adam Bird was milked for £34,000. He went to the Scientologists for help with dyslexia, but ended up borrowing from various different banks to buy courses. Then several Scientologists came to lodge with him to help with the hefty interest payments.
During this event, they took over my life. I had not intended to put lodgers in my house. I now had lodgers in my house who were Scientologists, one of whom was quite high up in their command structure. To help pay again, another one of them had loaned my car and was supposedly paying me rent for it. I then didn't have any means of transport.
In America, Flo Conaway and Jim Siegelman have been studying cults for the past 20 years. Their new research, which is about to be published, finds that Scientology has the worst long-term effects.
Among Scientologists in particular, people who come out of this group report to us very high levels of amnesia, memory loss, of insomnia, of disorientation, of hallucinations and delusions, of perceptions of bewildering psychic experiences that will plague them. In some instances, we've cataloged for up to 12 years after they leave the group.
Leaving Scientology was a traumatic experience for Gary Fry. Now married with a child, 2 years ago it was his mother's distress that broke through the Scientologist's control over his life.
The last straw was when my mum broke down into tears in front of me and basically startled with her emotions, startled me back into reality and what I was really doing in Scientology, what I was following.
Successful legal action secured the return of the £21,000 he'd paid them, but it was much harder to recover his mental health, though he says becoming a Christian helped.
It took me 2 months of real trauma in trying to leave it, and I went through times of suicidal depression to times when I was just so depressed. I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't understand what had happened to me. I couldn't understand what Scientology was all